Hi, my name's Timur, and I'm currently working towards my Masters in Digital Marketing. I began my NTU journey in 2014, where I studied English for my Bachelor's. Prior to university, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do at uni, or in the future. I chose English as it was a subject I was always passionate about. Originally, I chose to do English and creative writing, as I loved poetry. However, I quickly realised the creative writing element of the course wasn't for me, as I found I preferred writing for myself and not for assignments. I continued with straight English, which I thoroughly enjoyed, as it allowed me to develop myself as a person and build upon my strengths and weaknesses. It provided me with numerous skills that have massively benefited me since. Following my bachelor's, I decided to enter the real world. However, I still didn't really know what I wanted to do. I decided to work towards my strengths, as I've always been an extroverted person and I rely on being personable and empathetic. After countless job applications and rejections, I finally got offered a position as an insurance claims handler. Unfortunately, I was made redundant after 3 months, as the company was relocating and I wasn't willing to move. I then got a temporary job as a specialist support manager at Capital One. I love this job and I love this role, as it was to have real conversations with clients who were struggling to make their payments for whatever reason. Although it was very emotionally draining and it was extremely rewarding, as I got to talk to people and listen to their problems and do whatever I could to help them, whether that be freezing their payments for a while or indefinitely, or signposting them to the appropriate organisation to get the help they needed. As is the nature of temp jobs, this came to an end, and I spent the next 2 years moving from one temp role to another. On the side, I continued to work for myself, taking part in numerous online courses as well as helping the family business. This is where I developed an interest in marketing. My family run a fabric business in the centre of Birmingham. Over the last several years, I have been taking more responsibility, which culminated this year where I designed and set up a new website and e-commerce store. It's through this endeavour that I was exposed to the world of digital marketing and where my interest sparked. I knew I was interested in continuing my education, but I struggled with finding the time and the money to be able to leave work and fund a master's. 2020 was a strange year, with every person on the planet being impacted by COVID-19, but just like many others of my cohort, I saw an opportunity to jump back into the world of education. Doing marketing, I thought it was prudent to do a SWOT analysis. My strengths are I'm personable, passionate, empathetic and independent. This opens up opportunities as I'm an extroverted, assertive and can be very open-minded and confident. However, my weaknesses lie in the fact that I'm an overthinker, I can get anxious, I have a fear of making mistakes and I can be quite indecisive. This means that sometimes I struggle to switch off. I can sometimes get tunnel vision when I'm concentrating on one particular task and struggle to see the other things, and I tend to second guess myself, which results in low self-esteem. This lines up with my Myers-Briggs results, which lists me as an ENTP, which suggests I'm introverted, intuitive, perceptive and cognitive. However, when you dig into it a little bit more, you can see that I'm 46% introverted and 54% extroverted, which is what I believe after my self-evaluation. While the results of the Myers-Briggs test is interesting, as they are vague and generalised, they tend to oversimplify the complexities of personality. For my personal development plan, I set 3 distinct goals. The first was to learn to let go. The desired outcome of this was that one of my great weaknesses is that I'm prone to anxiety, and I tend to overthink things that are no longer in my control. I hope by learning to step away and not to worry about things I can't control, I'll be able to alleviate a lot of the stress in my life. I also hope it allows me to take the time to partake in hobbies and interests and rediscover my passions. My second goal is to step out of my comfort zone. The desired outcome of this is that I'm naturally quite an outgoing guy, but there are things I tend to avoid out of fear. My confidence is rooted in familiarity and comfortability, especially in my professional life. I find myself struggling with taking risks and I want to broaden my horizons by breaking down this barrier. My final goal is to learn to better manage my time. By working on my time management skills, I hope to learn to multitask better and improve efficiency rather than letting myself get overwhelmed and neglecting different tasks or parts of my life. The first CPD activity I did was my Photoshop course. As previously mentioned, one of my goals is to focus on my hobbies and interests and find a way to implement them in my professional life. This course helped me build upon my basic knowledge of photo editing and explained the purpose of the various tools and the best ways to use them and adjust their settings to get the most out of the program. It opened my eyes to a number of tools that were available compared to the free programs I was using before. It also encouraged me to pick up my camera again and practice using all the information I learnt. The next activity I want to talk about is my video editing course. This was a very short course, however it provided me an insight into the complex world of video editing, while it also encouraged me to pursue the subject through a number of different other avenues such as YouTube. While this isn't logged as a CPD activity, I spent a great deal of time playing guitar over the last year. I used to practice religiously when I was younger for several hours a day. However, as I have grown up, I found less and less time to play. Lockdown has offered a great opportunity for me to get back into it, and it has been a massive help when managing my mental health throughout this lockdown period. Another interest that hasn't been logged, as I didn't take part in any specific activity, is cooking. I've always enjoyed cooking. However, as with other hobbies, I have often found it takes a back seat to other commitments. Over the last year, I have rediscovered my love for cooking, as I have been experimenting with a number of different new cuisines and techniques. These activities are just a few examples of things I've been doing over the last year towards this goal. They've had a significant impact on my mental health during this difficult time and provided me with an emotional outlet. The photography and videography course encouraged me to go outside and explore more of Nottingham and the surrounding areas, while the cooking and music allowed me to express myself more creatively, which is something I feel I have neglected over the last few years. As a former English student and an avid writer, I was drawn to copywriting and how to develop my passion for writing and use it in a professional manner. This course provided a great deal of insight into a number of different copywriting principles, such as how to use the text to drive a reader's actions and increase sales, how to write an engaging headline, as well as the philosophies behind the practice. Psychology and philosophy have always been a massive interest to me, so I find it fascinating to learn about the theory behind consumer behaviour. This has also given me a great deal of insight into an industry, and it's definitely something I wish to pursue in the future. This course was taken to improve my Excel skills. Over the lockdown period, in previous jobs I've had to use Excel. However, I was never trained and I had very little knowledge. I expect to use Excel in the future, and I wanted to improve my skills ready for my re-entry to the professional environment. I learned a number of different skills, such as all the built-in Excel functions, as well as operators and precedent of operators, subtotal, function, relative, and absolute mixed cell references, formulas as well as formulas with tables and circular referencing, and date-related Excel functions. It has allowed me to improve my understanding of a program that I intend to regularly use, and it has built my confidence. This short course provided me with a great deal of insight into what is needed to create a successful website, and while it was just one of the many tools I used in my journey, it was the one that set me in the right direction. This course is similar to the previous activity, as it was one of many resources I used when I was setting up the e-commerce element of my site. It taught me how to build an online store and about Shopify, and how to optimize a site for conversions, how to optimize the landing page to reduce the bounce rate, as well as a number of other important elements of an e-commerce store. The importance of SEO is something we've discussed over the course of this year. However, it's only in the last few modules where we've really been able to get into it. This activity has helped me in my endeavour to build a successful and functional website. As with other activities, it was used in conjunction with a number of other resources, some of which have been logged while others have not been, but it's provided me with a great deal of insight into SEO and has directed me on my digital marketing journey. This AdWords course, along with the 2 sessions provided by Hallam, provided me with a great deal of information about Google Ads and paid search. It has been something I've continued to learn about, and I've used the knowledge in a number of my university assignments. It has taught me how to create and manage an AdWords campaign, how to do effective keyword research, and utilise different tracking metrics effectively, as well as reducing irrelevant traffic, utilising negative keywords, and increased conversions, and as well as our online visibility. However, there is still room for improvement. My second goal is to step out my comfort zone and take more control. As previously said, I've always been an outgoing and adventurous kind of guy. However, when it comes to things I've invested in and things that affect other people, I get very anxious. This year I've been pushing myself to take more risks in my personal and professional life. The best example of this is when it comes to my family business. For many years I was content, taking a back seat and simply working on the shop floor. However, due to a number of reasons, I have been given the opportunity to take a more hands-on approach. While we were previously reliant on an agency for all our online activity, we were unhappy with the service they provided. They would almost never update the website, and their activity on our social media was almost non-existent. The previous website was not functional and a bit of an eyesore. Using the skills I had acquired through the previously discussed CPD activities and other resources, I redesigned the website and took over the digital marketing element of the business. While we do still use the agency for everyday running of the site, once I finish this course, I will be looking at pushing myself to the point where I'm capable of taking over completely. My final goal is time management. This goal is possibly the most difficult, as I struggle to measure it. When I was working prior to lockdown, I found myself in a very monotonous routine, and although I was usually on time for work and I had a structure, I found myself not making full use of my time. I'd often find myself spending hours playing PlayStation or watching TV, and just wasting time. This was made significantly worse during lockdown, as I now lacked the routine and structure I had when I was working. This had a huge impact on my mental health, and I found myself struggling to motivate myself. Once I was accepted onto the master's course, I was determined to get myself out of this funk. I began to wake up at 9 a.m. regularly, and I forced myself out of bed and made sure I'd exercise every morning before I had my breakfast. I'd split my day up to do productive tasks such as playing guitar, going for walks, taking photos, cooking, and socializing as best I can. While I have been working on this goal, there have been times where I slip back into former habits, sleeping in and neglecting self-care. It is clear that this is going to be an ongoing slog, and I hope now the world has opened back up, I'll be able to succeed in achieving this goal. The Sustainable Development Goals was something I was aware of while working, but not something I'd ever made an effort to understand, not until I started this module. However, since then, it has been cropping up everywhere I look, especially with the current socio-economic climate and the excess free time I've had since lockdown began. I've ended up spending a lot more time learning more and more about these goals. Throughout this year, and with all the assignments we have done, I have been developing my understanding of the Sustainable Development Goals, with a particular focus on responsible consumption and production and gender equality. The majority of my assignments have revolved around the fashion industry, as this is the career path I want to pursue and just a general interest of mine. This has provided me with a great deal of insight into sustainability practices within the industry. I have also explored the gender inequality in my dynamic digital marketing module, focusing on Brewdog and the beer industry. It provided me with a greater understanding of the gender pay gap and the historic marginalisation of women in the industry. While these are the two goals that I've researched most, all 17 goals are essential when it comes to responsible practice, and they are something all businesses and individuals should be educated on. I continue to work on learning more about these individual goals and how I as an individual can contribute towards their achievement. This last year has provided me with a great deal of insight into the responsibility of a marketing professional. As previously mentioned, I want to pursue a career in fashion marketing and work my way up to a managerial position. Therefore, I would be focusing primarily on sustainability and equality in the workplace, alongside the other goals. While there are a number of factors to consider, such as production and logistics, as a marketer, the public image of the company will be my responsibility. It's unrealistic to believe that I can change a company's core values and practices, and I believe it's unethical to promote products and practices that don't strive towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. I've always considered myself to be an honest and transparent individual, and these are qualities I wish to extend into my professional role. Therefore, I aim to seek employment with a company that resonates with my views and values. This will allow me to work with a company and that gives me the opportunity to actually make a difference. My research over the last year has filled me with confidence, as it's clear the majority of businesses that I have looked at least, are striving towards improving their goals and business practices to align with the Sustainable Development Goals. The term responsible management is defined as a deliberate management of a company's impact on society. It's closely linked to the SDGs and can be explained using the triple bottom line framework. It's the idea that each company has a responsibility to make sure they are operating in an ethical and sustainable manner, and this applies to all aspects of their business. It's particularly important in today's society, as the last few years have seen a huge change in consumer behaviour. With most markets being overly saturated, brand image and public perception have never been more important. Most consumers prefer to interact with organisations and businesses that reflect their views and values. This can be seen in the fashion industry and in the increased popularity among sustainable clothing brands. By implementing responsible management practices, companies can increase their value proposition of their business as well as raise employee morale, leading to improved productivity and revenue. There have been a number of times where I've had disagreements with co-workers and team members. An example of this comes to mind when we were doing our MMX project at the start of the academic year. We were tasked to run a simulation of running a jeans company for a simulated 2-year period. Each quarter we had to evaluate the success of the previous quarter and see what we could do to improve while competing with other members of our class. As someone with experience in the fashion industry and being a rather outspoken individual, I was always happy to voice my opinions and ideas, as well as to what we should do. For the most part, we were able to come to agreements quickly and easily. However, it often got to the point where we would lock horns as to which direction we should go in. The way I found to best deal with this is to sit back and open up a channel of communication between the whole team and get everyone involved and put the decision to a vote. Upon self-reflection, I found that sometimes being the most outspoken one in the group is a limitation, as it may intimidate some of the more shy team members, and my confidence and experience can often lead to complacency. I do often take a leadership role in groups, as this is my personality and the role that I've taken in the professional world. However, I've been making a particular effort to communicate with my team more, making sure everyone is able to contribute equally and work towards the end goal together. While I was working for Nottingham City Council in 2019, prior to my Masters, we were faced with a number of issues. The team I was part of was responsible for management of the NCC leisure centres, the tennis centre and all related activities such as swim school, tennis school and all the gyms. Upper management introduced two initiatives at the start of my time there, one being a sales initiative and the other to crack down on all the accounts that were in arrears. Our team consisted of 10 customer service agents, most of whom had no experience in sales or collections before. We requested training in these particular areas, but they were refused due to budgeting restrictions, and we were told to work it out ourselves. As a team, we put our heads together and identified our individual strengths and weaknesses. We found that fortunately, 3 of us had worked in a similar environment before at some point in time. We arranged for those with experience to train up the others, and had people shadowing each other throughout the day. I myself, having had both experience in collections and sales, having worked at Capital One and Unitel Direct, as I didn't need any training, I was tasked with going through the direct debit reports and creating a database of all the customers that were in arrears and arranged them in order of severity. I also helped out with training some of the new members of staff, while other members of staff managed to work in the phone lines and social media. My role at the job was to manage a social media page and deal with phone queries, as well as taking bookings and dealing with memberships. And other members of staff had their own individual responsibilities. However, we came together and redistributed the tasks to ensure we all meet our targets, even if it meant doing things that were not part of our job description. In hindsight, it was upper management's responsibility to have dealt with the situation. However, it's a great example of how we came together as a team. It would have been more prudent to manage the situation better to ensure the staff had trained prior to the launch of both initiatives, and not to limit the responsibility of each staff to specific processes. Thank you for listening.